So I want to make a follow-up video tonight to a couple of videos that I've done recently on Postgres and Node.js and TimescaleDB. So I've been doing a series of posts on how you can use Postgres and TimescaleDB inside of Node.js. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about tonight was specifically TimescaleDB and what some of the functionality that you can use. So if you're not familiar with TimescaleDB, essentially it's an extension of PostgresDB. So Postgres allows for other vendors to essentially create their own extensions, and then you can essentially add functionality very easily to Postgres. So PostGIS is an example of an extension that adds all this location aware type stuff to Postgres. TimescaleDB really makes especially time series data databases incredibly scalable and on the Postgres landscape. And so they do this using something called a hypertable. And the way the hypertable works is that you have a parent table, and then inside of that parent table, you can have multiple child tables. And those child tables essentially are what referred to as chunks. So your parent table is the hypertable, and then all of these subsequent little pieces that make up your hypertable, those are kind of like child tables. Those are called chunks. And what they're doing is essentially they're partitioning the data, the time series data, into these different little chunks. And that's why they're able to do things like, very quick inserts, very quick queries and stuff like that, because they can kind of tune the database around time-specific data and make sure the indexes and stuff work properly with that. So with that, I want to show how we could create a table and then make it essentially a hypertable inside of TimescaleDB. So let me go ahead over here, and I'm going to open up my terminal. So here's my terminal, and I'm going to make sure that I actually have TimescaleDB running. And the way that I did that is I'm actually using a Docker container. It's probably the easiest way to get set up and running with TimescaleDB. So I'm going to say, well, first of all, let me check and see if it's not already running. So we do PS. I don't have any Docker containers running, so I'm going to go ahead and do Docker start. And what is this? Dev timescale. Nope, that's not it. Let's take a look and see what I named it. And the way you can check to see containers you already have registered, you can do a -A when you're doing your Docker PS. So this is my name of my instance. So I'm going to say Docker start. And now we start our Docker instance. So now that I've got that running, I'm going to come back into here. And I can see that this is table plus. I can see that I'm not connected here. So I'm going to see if it's going to let me tap to reconnect. And that doesn't seem to be working. Let me see if I can't run this. Disconnected. So let me see if I can't reconnect. So I'm going to come over here. And this should work. Open. Okay. So now we're back open. This one's not, so I'm just going to copy that out, and so let me close this. So I'm going to come over here, go to my queries, and let's put in a query. It's already got it. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that and run, and it lets me create this table. So here's the thing that's specific that you need in order to be able to create a hypertable. The first thing you need to have is an actual table. And so in my table here, I'm tracking account transactions here. And I'm using a user ID, a date, which is a timestamp. And that's the important part. You have to have at least a timestamp or date in here. And then I'm also tracking amount and the source. And then I'm creating a primary key. I'm basing it off of these two keys, the user ID and the date. That's going to be my unique key that I'm using for this table. So now that I've done that, let's create the hypertable. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say select just so we can see what it's doing. And I'm going to say create hypertable. And this Hypertable, I'm going to specify my account transaction. So I've got that in there. And we'll use DT. And I believe this has to be in single quotes as well. There we go. And let's go ahead and run that. And I have just created my Hypertable. So that's a simple. That's all you have to do in order to be able to create a Hypertable inside TimescaleDB. So there's a lot more to this. I'm going to put a link to the TimescaleDB documentation here so you can read up on that. And if you like the content that you're seeing on this channel, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that helps the algorithm. That helps more people see these videos on YouTube. With that, have a nice evening.